Welcome to Founders Metropolitan Community Church. We are so glad that you are here to worship with us today. Along with our Sunday worship, Founders Metropolitan Community Church offers a rich assortment of personal and spiritual enrichment classes, a variety of activities, and a number of support groups to help us grow along the way. Don't forget to visit the information and welcome table in the courtyard today, or pick up one of the connection flyers to find out more. Please don't miss out on the information and announcements in your bulletin, which will make your connection with Founders more meaningful. Check out our website, mccla.org, and find us on Facebook. And join us in making Founders Metropolitan Community Church your one-stop spiritual portal. If this is your first Sunday at Founders, you are our guest, and we would like to extend an especially warm welcome. After today's worship service, please join us for refreshments in the courtyard. Visit the Welcome and Information Center and meet some new friends. We would love to hear your questions, give you a tour of the building, or serve you a cup of coffee. In just a few moments, the ushers will pass out the welcome tablets. We want everyone to sign in today and let us know how we can best serve you. If you are joining us online, we want to hear from you as well. Look for the check-in information on the homepage of our website and let us know that you are joining us. Founders Metropolitan Community Church is a place of diversity and welcome, a place of healing and acceptance, a place of deep spirituality and transformation, a place of joy and love. Welcome to Founders Metropolitan Community Church, Los Angeles.
Blessed be your name. Blessed. Let's go. Blessed be your name when I'm found in the desert place. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name when I'm found in the desert place. Though I walk through the wilderness, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name when the sun's shining down on me, when the world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name on the road marked with suffering, though there's pain in the offering. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. You give
us join together in the spirit of prayer. Heavenly Creator, we come to you today to worship and to say that blessed is your name, and that we remember that even in our challenges, we are blessed. Because you are God who is good. You are God who creates all of us and declares it good. You are God who creates all of creation and says that we are blessed and blessing others. And so we come here today to be reminded of the great blessing that we have to be gathered together in this amazing community where your Spirit is moving in us and through us. And we ask today, God, we ask that you continue to rekindle that Spirit, the Spirit of hope, the Spirit of love, and the Spirit of justice within us, that together we may be your love and justice poured out into the world. We ask all these things in your many, many blessed names. Amen. Please be seated. A very special welcome to anybody who is new to the community. If you are a first-time visitor, if you're new to the community, please raise your hand so that we may welcome you and say hello. Welcome, welcome. It is good. It is good. It is good. Thank you for joining us. A reminder to everybody, immediately following our closing song, we are all invited to be community in, at, and after worship down in our fellowship hall, where there are snacks and coffee and warm beverages there to help us come together. So especially first-time visitors, but everybody, we encourage you to head downstairs after our closing song when worship ends today, so that we may greet our new visitors as well as be community together. A very special welcome to everybody who's joining us online today from around the world. It is always a joy and a blessing to know that as we come together here, there are people literally from around the world who are joining us live on our live broadcast. So thank you for tuning in. We do encourage you at some point during the worship to scroll down on the screen where you're watching this broadcast. You'll find that there's a place where you can give us your thoughts about worship, let us know what your prayers requests are, and let us know how we can support you wherever you may be, spiritually on your life journey or physically around the world this morning. For everybody here, welcome to worship at Founders Metropolitan Community Church. It is a joy to come together this morning, and we are incredibly blessed because today as we worship, we have a special message. It is a message from somebody who's been coming here off and on for the last 3 years. It is a very powerful message because we have within our midst somebody who is making this whole idea of nonviolence resistance very real in the way that she lives and works through her life. And so later on, we're going to be blessed by a prophetic message and a prophetic word from none other than Angeline Jackson. You will find on the inside of your worship bulletin that there's a brief bio of Angeline and just the amazing work that she's been doing over the last several years. Among the many awards that Angeline has received is, earlier this summer, she was the first recipient of the Troy Perry Medal of Honor for doing work within the LGBT community and continuing to keep Troy's legacy alive. She was called out by name by President Obama in 2015 when he met with young leaders in the Americas. And she is just an amazing, amazing person with a really powerful story of how we find ourselves in circumstances and are able to rise above all of those different challenges, provided that we stay anchored in our faith and on that journey. And so later on, I just know that you're going to be blessed. I now encourage you to rise as you're able and to bless one another. Let them know that they're in the right place this morning.
Our reading this morning is from the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 5, beginning at the first verse. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on the mountainside, and after he sat down and the disciples gathered around, Jesus began to teach them, "Blessed are those who are poor in spirit. The kingdom of heaven is theirs. Blessed are those who are mourning. They will be consoled. Blessed are those who are gentle. They will inherit the land. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will have their fill. Blessed are those who show mercy to others. They will be shown mercy. Blessed are those whose hearts are clean. They will see God. Blessed are those who work for peace. They will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of their struggle for justice. The dominion of heaven is theirs." Hear what the Spirit says today.
You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery, in oceans deep, my faith will stand. And I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace, for I am yours and you are mine. Your grace unbounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and fear surrounds me, you've never failed and you won't start now. So I will call upon your
Good morning. In a 1968 sermon, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King told the congregation, "You may be 38 years old as I happen to be, and one day some great opportunity stands before you and calls you to stand up for some great principle, some great issue, some great cause. And you refuse to do it because you are afraid. You're afraid that you will lose your job, or you're afraid that you will be criticized, or that you will lose your popularity, or you're afraid that someone will stab you, or shoot at you, or even bomb your house. So you refuse to take the stand. Well, you may go on and live until you are 90, but you are just as dead at 38 as you would be at 90. And the cessation of breathing in your life is but the belated announcement of an earlier death in the spirit." Let us pray. Let's pray. Creator God, open our ears, our hearts, our mind, and direct our path. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable unto you, O God. Amen. Never did I think that I'd actually be asked to give a message in a church. I also didn't think that at 27, I'd be asked to use my life and my story in that message. There are, however, many experiences and stories that have molded me and led to the person standing before you today. Some of these are fun and exciting, others not so much. However, I want to pull out a few of those experiences that connect to the series of nonviolent resistance. I was a church girl until I was 13. Grew up in the Brethren Church, christened, baptized at 7. I truly loved God, and I wanted to be a pastor. However, reality began to set in at 13. I realized that as a girl, it was not going to be possible to be a pastor in the Brethren Church. At least at that time. Times are changing and the church is dying. But more importantly, I liked girls. And because of that, my desire to be a pastor was completely out of the question, at least with the brethren. I didn't believe necessarily that I was sinful, but I knew that my church thought so. And so at 13, I decided to tell my mom that I might have been gay. Fortunately, I wasn't kicked out, but we did spend some time in prayer. The Brethren Church I went to believes that the Lord's Supper is not a private matter, but a corporate expression. 1 Corinthians 10:17 says, "Because we, being many, are one loaf, one body, for we partake of that one loaf." I decided to stop participating in the breaking of bread at church because I understood that passage to say that since my beliefs and that of my church about my sexuality were so different, I could not in good conscience take communion or participate in any worship activity. At the age of 16, when my parents fully, completely, totally understood and learned that I was gay, I spent a few months in what we refer to as ex-gay therapy. When I was 19, my friend and I were kidnapped, held at gunpoint, and raped. We were targeted because of our sexual orientation. We had two choices: suffer silently or report the matter to the police. My friend chose the former, and I can understand that. I chose the latter. When I went to the police, to officers who are trained to handle instances of sexual violence, I was told to leave this lifestyle and go back to church. The implication was that this was my fault. This life or death experience and the secondary trauma with the police took me back to the comfort of my faith that I had left at 13. For the first time in years, I felt sure of God's presence and relied heavily on that. In the spirit, the anchor holds variables became my anthem, and in the spirit of my church tradition, God was the solid rock upon which I stood. Yet by the time I was 23, I had entered a period of searching and began to identify as an agnostic atheist. But it was during that time that much of my work involved the faith community, including my first visit here to Founders MCC during Pride Weekend of 2014. Slowly, God worked on me to the place I am now. While I cannot recall the exact moment I became aware of the quote from MLK, I remember that this helped me to make my decision to be an out LGBT activist in Jamaica. I may have been 22 or 23 and was considering the necessity and the possibility of starting an LGBT NGO in Jamaica. Whether or not I needed to be out, and if I was out, how out did I need to be? My co-founder and I agreed that one of our first steps, and something that was very important, was that we needed to be out in order to be effective as activists and as an organization. Sometimes our fear is not for our own selves, but for the people we love. For me, though this was a scary moment and a scary decision, my concern was much less for my own safety, but more for that of my family. Because of where my concern was, I decided to have a talk with my dad before I started my organization. Sitting in a food court in Kingston, Jamaica, I told my dad that I had decided that I was going to be publicly out and gay. And his first response was, "Why do you need to do that?" I told him that I was going to be out because I needed him to know that I cared about my safety, but also about their safety. I cared about him, my mom, and my sisters. But I also needed him to know that this was something I believed I needed to do. This moment was, for me, the moment MLK described in his 1968 message. I was 23. If I chose to remain in the closet because I feared for my life and my safety, then I would have experienced my own spiritual death, even if I lived to a ripe old age. For a long time, I never saw the impact nor influence of faith in my work, yet it was the chance words of encouragement from a very unlikely source, from Imam Daid Abdullah, during my agnostic journey, that led me to see how my early Christian faith was still very present in my work. This, of course, was then followed by my reintroduction to MCC and Christianity right here at Founders. I presented on a panel, Realizing the Right to Relate, with two other international guests, and I met Patrice, a 23-year-old who was passionate about her faith and her desire to be a pastor. Still, I never fully considered how faith, or even my faith, had anything to do with my work. But over the course of 2 years, and when I reflect on my earlier work in human rights and LGBT rights, I have come to realize that it does take faith to be an activist. But why faith? Because you are never sure that the campaigning and work and sweat and tears and long nights and no sleep, you are not sure that any of that will actually lead to the change that you want to see. But you believe that it will. And it is that belief that pushes me to continue my work. And on the days when it seems impossible and insurmountable, or the times when significant and potentially negative political changes happen in a nearby influential country, I will call no names, it is this faith that allows me to pause, collect my thoughts, and continue on. When many people think of Jamaica, they think of the beautiful sunshine, reggae music, and the blue Caribbean Sea. But the Jamaica many LGBT people experience is filled with insecurity, violent attacks, sexual violence and corrective rape, discrimination in access to healthcare, employment and housing, anxiety, depression, and a range of other issues. The specific challenge we face is the existence of an 1864 colonial law. Let me repeat that for you. The specific challenge we have in 2017 is the existence of an 1864 colonial law, which criminalizes anal sex and same-sex intimacy between men. The greater challenge is that this law is widely interpreted and used as a general criminalization of homosexuality, which leads to individual citizens taking the law into their hands. Through the continued existence of the law, Jamaica condemns its LGBT citizens to be treated as criminals and second-class citizens. Hence the reason my organization is called Quality of Citizenship Jamaica. LGBT people are verbally harassed and threatened, oftentimes called Batman and Sodomite, which are the derogatory terms for gay man and lesbian respectively. Threatened with physical violence, threatened with rape, attacked by mobs. Because of this antiquated and privacy-invading law, Jamaica is culpable and responsible for the murders of Brian Williamson, a prominent LGBT activist in 2004, for the machete attack against a lesbian by her neighbor in 2015, for the murder of Dwayne Jones, a transgender youth who was stabbed, shot, and driven over by a car simply for attending a street party as a woman in 2013. For the many transgender women and gay youth who live in our storm drains, for the countless unreported sexual assaults and rapes of lesbian and bisexual women, and for the sparse access to justice experienced by many LGBT Jamaicans. Across the world, I've had various friends and colleagues arrested, hit with eggs, prohibited from marching, prohibited from speaking, heckled, among other things, simply for seeking something like the right to life and the right to be treated as equal citizens. Yes, it is 2017, but there is much, much work to be done across the world, and even here in your own home or your backyard, as we would say in Jamaica. Though we are often attacked, threatened, and hindered in our activities and our movements, many of us as LGBT activists have resisted responding to violence with violence. That is not to say that we have not been tempted. In Jamaica, our nonviolent resistance comes in the form of silent protests, raising up new leaders and activists, speaking on behalf of those who cannot speak for themselves, court challenges, LGBT pride events, and other forms. So after giving you all this, laying all this burden on you, you might be thinking, then where does MCC fit into this? Where does Founders fit into this, for that matter? You might be thinking, but Founders is going through a transition, we can't do anything else. We're stretched thin, we don't have the people or the resources. Usually, in secular spaces, when I give a talk, I will mention political activities that can be done and the need for donations. But since we're in a spiritual place, I'm going to try and give a more spiritual response. I'll start off by saying, and this might be a little harsh, as an LGBT person in Jamaica, I did not have much of a relationship with MCC, the denomination. Yes, Reverend Nancy Wilson and a few other ministers came to our country and marched with us in 2010. Yes, we had a budding church there for a while. Yes, I was and continue to be inspired by Reverend Troy Perry. But the average LGBT Jamaican seeking a spiritual home is not thinking about MCC because they do not know about you. You are a church. What are the ministries already in place that can be supported? Who are the people already doing something who could use your support? When I am home, I regularly watch the 11 a.m. service because I have no MCC to go to. This is why I volunteer in the multimedia ministry. Can you lend your talents there? What other ministries have international impact that you can support? Where are your missions teams, such as the one that went to Mexico earlier this year? Do you see the need for new ministry? If you do, tell someone. How can social media be used to reach those who do not know about MCC? The denomination website says that MCC is on a bold mission to transform hearts, lives, and history. That as a people of faith, we have a responsibility to act on behalf of those who cannot effect change on their own and to lead from the margins. To be clear, I am not calling or asking for you to put on your capes and to save us. I am calling for you to be a support where you are needed. Writing from the Birmingham jail, MLK said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. There are over 76 countries in this world where homosexuality is legal. Jamaica is just one of many. There is work to be done. There are people still in the margins of the United States, of Jamaica, the world over, who can be liberated from those margins. MCC, you are a global church. Founders, MCC, you are the founding church. Your influence is great, and as such, your responsibility is great. Don't take my word for it. Luke 12:48 says, when someone has been given much, much will be required in return. And when someone has been entrusted with much, even more will be required. In closing, I encourage you to meditate on the words of the song Patrice ministered to us. You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown where feet may fail. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. Let these words be our prayer this week. Amen.
It is this God of love, is the God that we worship. It is what this ministry is about, has always been about for 48 years, and it is what Spirit is resurrecting within our hearts. It is the story that Angeline shared with us. It is the song that Patrice gave to us. It is the many ways that each one of you are coming around and volunteering your hearts, your hopes, your prayers, your persistence, and your passion, that God may continue to do a new thing in and through us once more. This is our time, and this is our calling, and we can't do this unless we do it, and we do it together. And so I want to thank each and every one of you for the many ways that you continue to give everything that you have so that we can continue to work through what it is that we need to work through, that we open ourselves up, and that we continue to listen what God is asking us to do now more than ever. So thank you for being part of this journey. For those of you who are watching online, I do invite you now to gather up the wine, the grape juice, the crackers, the bread, whatever it is that you have available that you want to use today. In a few minutes, we are going to celebrate an open communion. It means that whoever you are, wherever you are on your life or spiritual journey, you are welcome to participate in this great feast of love. Now, more than ever, we need to be community here within this space and connected like never before to people throughout the world. So please gather that up now so that we may truly join in this feast together. There's a lot of stuff that's happening in the life of this community. It is great and it is amazing. There are many opportunities for you to connect well beyond Sunday worship. I do invite you to take your worship bulletin. There's a lot of information that is there about the many, many things that are happening. Next Sunday, Don Mueller, who is actually, he's one of our ushers and the head usher at the 11 o'clock service. He also a lieutenant with the Sheriff's Department. He is going to be leading at the invitation of our Trans Unity group a session to talk about how to stay safe in the community. This is going to happen after our social time next Sunday following the 11 o'clock worship service. We really encourage you to come out wherever you are in your life journey, whether you identify as trans or LGBTQ, or you want to be an ally. The conversation is going to really talk about how we individually can be safe, but also how we can also provide safety and sanctuary for others. And so I really encourage you to make time, spread the word, come on out and get involved and find out, because this is an important time. And the wisdom that he has to share, I think, is wisdom that we can all use, not just to help our trans brothers and sisters, but our Muslim brothers and sisters, women in the world, people who just don't feel safe anymore. So let's act. Let's not just talk. Let's act as well. I'm lost here today, but that's okay. I'm just carried away by the Spirit, so I'm going to actually have to read some notes. I just hope you all appreciate just what an amazing community you are. Spirit is alive and well within you, and sometimes we just don't appreciate it. Everybody who gave of their financial resources in one way or another last year, the giving statements are in. So we invite you to stop down at Fellowship Hall immediately following our worship service. Oyi, who's our treasurer, and a couple of volunteers are there passing those statements out. They will be there after each of our worship services this Sunday and next Sunday, so please pick them up. These are your financial giving statements. If you gave financially to this congregation last year, we're going to, at the end of next Sunday, any remaining giving statements we'll put in the mail. And so you will get them one way or another, but they are available today, so we encourage you to stop on down. We are actively recruiting for a new facilities manager. The position is open and available. I do have the job description, so if you are interested or curious or know somebody who may be interested in that, please contact myself or one of our board members. Our goal is to receive applications over the course of the next couple of weeks. The application period closes February 5th, which is 2 Sundays from today, and we want to very quickly make a decision, and so we're going to start interviewing people as the applications come in. So please help us get the word out. It's an important position, given the 30 different support and recovery groups that we have and all the different ways that we want to use this facility to be the spiritual center for our community. We need to have somebody who can really help us to make that happen. So if you've got questions, let me know. We'll be posting that job description out on the website and sending it out electronically in our electronic newsletter later on in the week. This is the fourth Sunday, and so on the fourth Sunday we take two offerings. The first offering, which comes around in our brass plates, those are our general offerings. Those are the resources that we need in order to make this ministry happen, to keep the lights on and the heat going, and to have the resources to really touch lives out in the world. The second offering is our Helping Hands offering, and there's going to be a basket that's placed in front of the altar. That's the money that we utilize in order to support our many Helping Hands ministries. From the food pantry that feeds 125 people every single week, to the once-a-month brown bag ministry that takes sandwiches and lunches out to the homeless in the area, our Laundry Love that does laundry for low-income and homeless people once a month, as well as our benevolence fund. And so we ask that you give, and give in the ways that God is blessing you, because God is doing just this amazing, amazing thing among us. Thank you.
Grateful for the opportunity to show in some small way how much you mean to us and how much this church means to us and how much we still believe in the ministry that this church provides. So like the loaves and fishes, we would ask that our offerings be multiplied in an unending manner so that all those for whom these gifts are meant to touch will be touched. Amen.
Amen.
So Angelina, I want to thank you before time for our communion, our consecration, and our community prayer for your message. I think it's very timely. About 3 weeks ago, right after the beginning of the new year, I went on retreat, and I too sat with an imam. It sounds like a joke, an imam, an Episcopal priest, and a Jewish rabbi. We didn't walk into a bar. Well, we walked into a bar afterwards, but... and I had just one question for them, and I said, so how are we to respond? Because the truth is, for myself, my thoughts were turning much more to Malcolm X than MLK Jr. And I know I'm not alone. And, you know, similar to your wisdom, they looked at me and they understood. They also, you know, illuminated me on the role that Malcolm X played in MLK's ministry, which I was unaware. But they reminded me that ultimately it is nonviolent resistance. And so thank you for your message. And I would ask now that all of you would join me in prayer to that special place where God is always waiting for us if we're simply still, and allow your thoughts to turn to your breath, breathing deeply as it quiets your heart and quiets our minds. And we can just feel the arms of God just slowly embracing us and holding us close. And kind and loving God, we're so grateful to be able to congregate safely. I mean, it's easy to feel afraid in light of recent events, but the truth is, God, we're so grateful for the amount of safety we have and the amount of freedom we have, even now, even when people would look to take some of that away. And I've been encouraged this morning to speak on, or to pray on gratitude, hope, and healing. And when I look at gratitude, I'm reminded of a teacher, a prophet actually, who said, if we truly believe that a kind and loving God is in charge of all creation, and that God is on our side, then the only acceptable response to whatever happens in our lives, individually or collectively, is gratitude. So help us to feel that gratitude, God, in the midst of all of the Sturm und Drang, in the midst of the chaos and fear and the uncertainty. Help us to still see your hand in it. Help us to see where it's destined to lead us, how it's destined to strengthen us, the ways that it's meant to make us sharper and keener, to burn away more of the egoic dross so that the purity of who you've created us to be is shining ever more brightly. And hope. Our last president campaigned on hope. MLK Jr. preached hope. Our own Harvey Milk would constantly say, you got to give him hope. Hope feels in short supply right now, God, and so we would ask that by grace you just open our eyes to all the signs and symbols of hope that by faith we trust are there for us. And when we experience and when we see it, help us to not just hold on to it like a life preserver, but help us to toss it over to someone else whose hope may be in even shorter supply than ours. And finally, healing. You know, God, we're always in need of healing in some way, shape, or form. That's the human experience. So first, individually for all of us, whether it's body, mind, or spirit, give us what we need. Healing means to be made whole, so help make us whole, God. Help us to feel whole, unbroken, complete. And then as a community in a world, God, just continue that ripple effect of healing so that the lives of so many who were given up for justice and ministry and hope didn't go in vain. As always, we're so grateful for everything that you continue to shower upon us, and we offer this prayer as every prayer in the name and memory of our teacher, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. We celebrate communion every single time that we gather at all three of our Sunday worship services. And we celebrate communion, in part as a matter of healing for all those who, at some point on your journey, have felt separated and isolated, as though you weren't good enough or welcome at the table, not counted as part of this body. We also celebrate it every single Sunday as a sign of justice, as a sign of the kind of justice that God calls us to live, the kind where people are gathered together. And perhaps the most loving thing that we can do is to create communities like those that Jesus had gathered around him.
Yes.
People who were someplace on the journey, didn't have it all figured out, had questions and doubts, were rejected by society, thought ill by others, talked badly about, and yet he gathered them there. And there, in the last hours of his earthly ministry, he had a meal. Maybe that's what this is all about. For us to find the time with one another, to break through all of the noise and all of the ways that we're separated. He took the bread, he blessed it, and then he broke it open. And maybe it's in the breaking of the bread that we all might be whole. That the paradox of breaking it apart is that we can all find our way back into love with ourselves and love of one another, in relationship with this God who's calling us all home. He said, "This is my body. This is my body, and it's given to you. Take, eat, do this in remembrance of me." And then in a like way, after the meal, he took the cup and he blessed it, and he passed it to all who were there. He said, "There's nothing between you and I. This cup contains the life force that runs in and through my blood. This is the cup of forgiveness. It's what love looks like when we spend time with one another, when we take time to heal and to hope and to listen once more, when we take time to ensure that each of us have the sustenance, the stuff that we need to sustain us in a world that is devoid too often of love, devoid of hope. And so we invite you to come, wherever you are on life's journey. Come to this table, not because you must, but because you may. Because this invitation comes through us, but it is God's invitation. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey, this is the cup of love, and this is the place of a new beginning. The ushers will guide you. I now invite the ushers and the acolytes to come forward, that we may prepare for this feast, that we may be in community and in communion together.
Shall cross the barren desert. show your mercy. Who is this God who pardons all our sins, so ready to forgive? You delight to show your mercy. For your name is great and your heart is great. Kyrie eleison, over all you reign, you alone can save. Kyrie eleison, for your name is great and your heart is great. Kyrie eleison, over all you reign, you alone can save. Kyrie eleison. Lord have mercy. Christ have mercy. Lord have mercy. Christ have mercy on us now. For your name is great and your heart is great. Kyrie eleison, over all you reign, you alone can save. Kyrie eleison, for your name is great and your heart is great. Kyrie eleison, over all you reign, you alone can save. Kyrie eleison. Lord have mercy. Christ have mercy. Oh Lord have mercy. Oh Christ have mercy on us
My friends, as we prepare to head out into the world, may you know that wherever you are on life's journey, you are part of this one body of God. We are all part of this one family that God has invited us and adopted us all into. May you go. Go knowing that as you go, God's love lives within and through you, that you have the power and the strength. May God's courage guide you so that you may be a people of hope, a voice of love, in the hands bringing justice once again into our community, our city, and our world. Please rise as you're able for our closing song.
Sometimes it's hard for you to understand why we pull away from each other so easily, even though we're all walking the same road. And we build dividing walls between each other and ourselves.
Thank you for joining us today. By participating with us online, you are an extension of this church's membership ministry. Wherever you are in the world, we are so excited to embrace you, to hear from you, and to pray for you. Please connect with us and interact with us by telephone, email, or social media. Be an angel amongst us by supporting this ministry through our donation link. With your help, we expand and reach a greater number of people with God's love through this ministry. We invite you to write to us so we can be in prayer and praise with you. You are a part of Founders Metropolitan Community Church. Email us directly, info@mccla.org. May God bless you.